You're getting a jump on things, and hopefully you'll learn something helpful, a couple of things helpful. So when you hear the word networking, how many of you are like, yes, awesome, I'm so excited, I cannot wait? Okay, good. Okay, that's fun. It can be an awesome experience. But how many of you think, oh God, I'm getting really nervous, I hate this, this is going to be an awful experience? Maybe some of you, right? So you think of the word kind of initially kind of puts a little bit of fear and hesitation into your thinking is like, oh God, that word just kind of freaks you out. So, and that's okay, but hopefully we will be able to relax some of your fears today and not make you think that that word networking is such a scary thing. So what we're hopefully going to talk about today is kind of define what networking is, and then identify your own personal professional ways to communicate with members of your network. So networking, some myths might be that's only for extroverts, right? If you're not an extrovert, it can be a little bit more daunting, but there's definitely plenty of ways that introverts can network. Some people think of networking as a means to an end, like I must go network with this one person right now in order for myself to get this particular internship. You know, sometimes that is the case. Most of the time it is actually building your network in order to use those people in the future, or even help them out with the information that you know. So it's a little bit of a back and forth, and we'll go into more detail about that later. So, of course, to start off, you're going to need to chat with someone next to you just for a couple of minutes. You've already done, or the people who are here at first, you've already done this typical name, major, class year. So none of that in your little dyads or triads with the 2 or 3 people near you. Just talk to them, find out 2 or 3 interesting things about them that are not the standard name, major, where you're from, what year you are, whether it's hobbies that they like or why they chose to come to this lab, what they did over intersession, something that's a little bit more interesting than the pretty standard first, 3 or 5 questions. So go ahead with the person next to you. If we're not, we might need at least one triple somewhere in here. So all I hear is something called Maybe another 1 minute or so. Okay, we can bring it back in. Hopefully you got a chance to get a little bit more information that you might not have known about the people in this room. Come on in, have a seat. A little bit more room. Great. So, what did you find anything interesting about that activity? What did you notice? Did you find any common ground with people like, oh, I like that too, or oh, I've been there too? Cool, great. Anything else? Do you consider that a networking activity? Was it anxiety producing for you, or do you feel like it was pretty laid back, pretty easy? Pretty laid back, pretty easy. So maybe some anxiety for some people, and that's completely fine, but it was meant to be fairly laid back, fairly easy, and it can be considered a networking activity. Your peers are definitely, you know, you might be in a certain department. Oh, I know someone in that department, or oh, you took Taekwondo, where did you take it? Oh, I know that person. And you make connections through the different activities, hobbies, interests, where you've lived, all of those things. So that can definitely be the start of a networking activity. So the point was to get you realizing doesn't always have to be extremely high stress. It doesn't even have to be high stakes information that you're gathering. So here's a little brief video about networking. Hopefully it's loud enough.
Networking can be a daunting task. Putting yourself out there, meeting new people, it can be scary. But when it comes to your career, it's essential to your success. Let's first start with the purpose of networking. Even though the end goal is for us to improve our own opportunities, you can't approach it like that. The most successful networkers meet someone and say, what can I do for that person? Not, what can that person do for me?
I think it affords you a great opportunity to learn about other people, other businesses, other industries, and networking doesn't have to be strictly about job searching. It can be really about just building relationships. I think people, unfortunately, think of networking as, I need to meet new people and they're going to find me a new job. There's so much more to it than just finding that new job.
The worst thing you can do is go into a networking event completely blind. If there's an attendee list, you want to do a little research. See who's going to be there, what is their business, who might you want to talk to.
If you know you're going to a networking event and you have an idea of who's going to be there, see if you can do some homework on them. You may want to Google them. Do some homework. See if there's any information that's provided by the event organizer so that you're not walking in cold.
Also, you want to stay up to date on current events. You want to make sure you have some talking points ready when the conversation starts. During the event, you want to have some preset goals. Whether you meet 3 people or 20 people, having goals will keep you focused.
My goal for people in the room is not to leave with a stack of business cards, but to have 5 or maybe 6 conversations that are deep and meaningful, and to do something powerful with them after the fact. So the quick, meet and greet is just the start.
I think that if you're going to the networking session, you should already have a goal in mind. My goal is I want to find out about opportunities that I could get in my major, or I'm just exploring careers. I want to talk to people about what they do, what they like about work, because I'm just in an early exploration stage.
Don't monopolize the conversation and don't come on too strong. Even though it's tempting to brag about yourself and all that you've accomplished, remember that the most successful networkers focus on what they can do for the people they meet, not what those people can do for them.
when you network with people, making sure that you're looking out for them, however that might be, as much as you may want them to look out for you. So when you exchange business cards, maybe exchange, hey, could I have 2 of yours in case I want to give yours out to somebody else, things like that. So making sure that you sort of give as much as you get.
Here's a tip. You want to make sure you always keep one hand free, because you never know when you're going to have to greet someone with a handshake. Oopsies. The most effective networkers know that the real work begins when they get home. After the event, jot down some notes about who you talked to and what was discussed. The back of the business card is a great place to do that. Promptly reach out within a few days saying it was nice to meet them and that you'd like to discuss ways that you might work together moving forward.
The personal touch, the human touch, emotional intelligence is, I would say, more important than it ever has been. And that's why networking is so important. You really have to figure out how to meet folks, not just through LinkedIn. That's important too, but you have to get out there and get into the fray and get in front of people. FaceTime, up close and personal. That's very important.
Keep an open mind and don't write anyone off as irrelevant. One of the most exciting things about networking is you never know who you might meet and what wonderful connections might be made.
So the parts of that I understand were a little bit cheesy, but that's, I didn't make it. But hopefully some of that information was helpful. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. What did you, there we go. What did you take away? Any takeaways from the video that were helpful? That you didn't know before, that were helpful? So one of the things that I think is helpful is, I kind of mentioned it before, is that networking doesn't have to be a means to an end, that it's also what you can help them out. I have this information, I have this knowledge, I have this skill, therefore I am beneficial to you in your internship or in your job, either now or hopefully now or in the future. Another piece is the follow-up. That's extremely important. If you meet someone in an airport, at a conference, at a workshop, at some type of another event, even just at a Starbucks or something, definitely following up. It was great to meet you. I enjoyed talking about this particular thing. Maybe catching up again later, or if there was an actual takeaway, oh, you mentioned that there were opportunities, shadowing opportunities or internship opportunities, would you be able to talk to me a little bit more about that? The other piece about networking, and one important piece you might have heard, is that a lot of jobs are not even posted anymore. It is about 80% of jobs are never published. So that's a huge, huge number. So a lot of people aren't even seeing some jobs that are available because of internal networking or even external networking, that this person has interned there before, so they just go up through the chains. And these aren't handouts. It aren't people who don't deserve jobs. It's they have done their work, they have done their networking, they have their academics or their skills to get these jobs, but they were able to get hired in the proper fashion, but without having the job have to be even published. So you might not even know about jobs that you might be perfectly qualified for and fit for because someone else was in there networking or shadowing or interning or volunteering or something. So that's a really, really huge number. So these are things to think about. Consider your network. So not thinking just academically, just thinking, actually, let me hand these out. These don't need to be done right now, but this is kind of your networking plan. If you start thinking about things on that, you could certainly jot things down. So start thinking about just your personal network. Who are your family, any community members, religious groups, any hobbies? neighbors, cousins. There's times I'm like, oh wait, my cousin lived there, or oh, my friend went to school there, especially as you get older and get a secondary degree and you meet people from, wait, I went to undergrad there, wait, I had a friend who went to undergrad there, oh, I had a friend that was in that group or lived in that location. There's plenty of ways that you're able to reach out to people and get to know people through your different networks. So be thinking about all of these type of one-off networks that you might not be considering, like your neighbor or your parents' neighbor or something. Anytime that, you know, someone comes up to me and is like, oh, I heard that you worked for a semester at SIA. Would you mind talking with somebody about that? Absolutely. I worked for a semester at SIA. I would definitely talk to somebody about that. So most people are willing to help someone else out. Anyone from my undergraduate institution, I went to Northeastern University in Boston, and if someone were like, hey, I have someone who's considering Northeastern or is there now, has a couple of questions. Yes, like why would you not want to? Most people are going to want to help people out. So on the reaching out aspect, it feels weird. It feels more weird on your side. Most people that are getting those emails or getting those LinkedIn requests or Go Hop Online requests aren't going to be like, oh, weirdo, this person went to my school or is in my same group. Like, try to think of it kind of on the flip side. If you were that person getting that email or getting that LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever request, would you think, oh no, I'm not going to help that person? Like, hopefully not. Hopefully you're a good person and would want to do what you could to help them. That's what most people do want to do. Also think about any professional connections. If you have any small businesses or even your hair salon or something, they might, as you create relationships, it sounds funny, but they create relationships with you and you find out their daughter or their son or their neighbor works at so-and-so, you never know where your connections can come up. Academics, definitely, your faculty have done amazing things. TAs, all of those people, start talking to them about either where they went to school, where they've done their research, different places that they've worked, staff on campus, staff at other places that you might work. And then of course, electronic social media, that's not going away. Facebook is becoming an even more bigger network for the professional world. Is not quite there yet, but there are definitely professional associations, university associations that are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. How many of you have heard of Go Hop Online? Great. So if you haven't, it's through Hopkins. It's not through the Career Center. It is through the Alumni Association. It's basically LinkedIn for Hopkins. So it's a really good, I think it's a pretty decent tool. The alumni that are on there specifically self-chose to be on it, so it wasn't just an upload of all Hopkins alumni. It doesn't mean you're still going to get 100% return rate. Same thing with LinkedIn. Unfortunately, people get busy. They have their lives going on. It doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. It's just things happen and they get busy. But hopefully, if you reach out via LinkedIn and or Go Hop, you'll get a decent return rate if you do reach out to them. On LinkedIn, there are ways to search for groups and join groups. So if you haven't, there's the Johns Hopkins University group, there's Johns Hopkins University alumni group. And what those allow you to do is you don't have to be officially friends with them on there. You can just search, be a part of that group, and then you can reach out to them that way. You can search by industry, you can search by location, you can search by specific company, which is also helpful to narrow down those people you might want to connect with. And same thing with Go Hop Online, you can search by major and it narrows down your criteria to those type of things. Any questions so far? Okay, great. All right, so I do not want this here. I don't know that I can move it. Okay. So these are the things that I want you to start thinking about in your networking plan. Are there some extras anywhere to shoot them down? That would be great. Thanks. Perfect. All right. So be thinking about this, what you want your goal to be when talking to particular people. So who are maybe 3 people that you want to talk to? So Professor so-and-so is your connection. because I know that they are very involved in such and such industry. So my goal is to talk to them about how they got into the industry, what is the best way to get your foot in the door. And there's a little bit of a difference between networking with people that you already have a connection with. So you can be a little bit more upfront with, your professor who you might have already established a relationship with. You can say, hey, what should I go about doing? What types of internships or shadowing opportunities or research opportunities should I do in order to get my foot in the door at such and such industry? You might not initially say that to a person at a conference that you just meet. That might not be your initial, hey, what do I have to do to get into your industry? You might start about your contribution, your skills, and then kind of work it from there. But it's still, the end goal is to figure out how you want to get your foot in the door. Same thing, a peer group or someone either in your class or a class above or behind you. You know that they're part of a student group, or they've done a certain research project. You want to learn about specific trends in that industry. A student group, identifying resources for ongoing education. So those are some examples. So if you want to think about 3, 4, 5 different connections and what your goal of that particular connection would be. It helps to kind of narrow that down a little bit, as opposed to, I'm going to network with this person because they're a great person in the field. Well, what do you specifically want to know from them, learn from them, and again, also, what can you potentially contribute back to them? All right, so these are ways that we've kind of talked about some of these ways, but how do you expand your network? So you're here at this, hopefully you are learning some information. We don't at the Career Center necessarily have lists of alumni or lists of employers that we hand out, but if you do schedule meetings or stop by to Career Coaches on Campus drop-ins, as most of you, at least the initial people who are here are freshmen and sophomores, drop-ins or peer advisors, we might have different ideas of ways you can network. We don't have an actual list that we can hand you, but it's a good place to start. An alumni association, even on LinkedIn, you can join the alumni association before you graduate, so you could be a part of the Johns Hopkins University Alumni Association on LinkedIn, using Go Hop Online, using professional associations, which might kind of sound a little bit further along than you, especially those of you who are freshmen and sophomores, but they're a great way to get connections. So I know some of you are BME, right? So BMES is local as well as a national association. A lot of the professional associations have local chapters, either Baltimore, Maryland, DC, this general area, or Hopkins Association. They might have local conferences, local workshops. They might have their own job board. They might have general resources on there. So definitely check out. You could just easily Google search professional associations for whatever your major is, and a bunch would pop up. Also on Handshake, if you go to our resources page, one of the resources is Focus 2. It's typically an assessment tool, but one of the links under Focus 2, when you click on a major at the very bottom, it gives you professional associations that are associated with that particular major. So that can be a really helpful tool as well. Like I said, Facebook is kind of up and coming in the professional world, but knowing that it still is social media, you still do need to be careful about things that you post. It seems self-explanatory, but I still see lots of things on Facebook that should not be on there. So you do already at this level have to start thinking about things that you say and post, and pictures and things that you post on Facebook. But I always find connections on Facebook, like, wait, you know this person? How did you know this person? Oh, I worked with this person, and you can reach out that way as well. Fan mail, I don't actually really know what that is. No, I don't really know. I guess it's more industry based, so knowing your industry leaders. So if there are people in your industry that have done research, that have done articles, that have led conferences, that have led workshops that you're able to either connect with via social media or connect with at a conference. Those are kind of the thought and industry leaders. And then cold calls, those are a little bit more scary for some people, you know, just cold calling or cold emailing, like, hey, this is my name, this is my major, this is what I'm generally interested in. I was wondering if there was someone I could talk to about how you got into this career path, or what opportunities you might have in your division or things like that. Typically, you don't want to start off too strong about asking about opportunities right away. You want to ask about, you know, what they've done to get to where they are in their career path, or what their career path looks like, or ideas they might have to move along in their career path, that type of thing, and then asking from there if they are aware of any opportunities. So those are definitely ways. I would say probably 50% of my jobs were made through networking, and not all of them like for a means to an end. So for one job, I was like, all right, I need to get out of this current job. I like it enough, but I need to get out. How can I move along? So instead of going to people and asking them, what do you have? What do you have? I sought out strong women leaders in higher education to meet with them, because I'm in higher ed, as my degree is higher education. So I met with people, deans, and people who I saw as strong female leaders, because I also wanted to know how they did it with family, and I have a little child, so I also wanted to know how they managed that. So I just sat down and met with them. And what was your career path? How did you manage your career, your family, just general conversations. And then those conversations a couple of months later led to, oh, I have an opening, we'd love to have you. So those type of things definitely do work. So it was those initial conversations, not really looking for a job directly, kind of on the back of my head, but that wasn't my initial ask. So it can definitely be helpful. All right, so have you heard of the elevator pitch? Yes. So these are things, this is kind of the initial either email, cold call, or in person is what you want to be able to talk to the person that you're networking with about. This can be, like I said, in person, it can be by email. It's typically almost your first part of your cover letter, but a little bit more personal than that. So you want to think about, what are the 3 things that you want employers to know about you? Why are you interested in this person or this organization or this opportunity? And what questions do you have to start the conversation or continue the conversation in terms of opportunities, their career path, the research they're currently doing, how they got to where they are, those type of questions. So take a couple of minutes and kind of think about what things that you would say to someone that you are networking with. What are the 3 major things about your skills that are a little bit unique about you that you want to get across to a potential employer, or at least someone you're networking with about as a potential employer in the future? And this could be only 30 seconds, so it should only be 30 seconds to a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. If you were at a conference and this person that you have been meaning to talk to or really wanting to talk to, or you really admire in your industry, came up to you, bam, what would you say, and how would you not like just completely freeze on the spot? What is going to set you apart? When an employer asks in an interview, tell me about yourself, that's also kind of what the elevator pitch piece is as well. So a few more tips for elevator pitch. Typically, obviously, you'd start out with your name. If you happen to have any connections with the context, so I heard your speech at such and such, or I read your book, or I read your article, or I met you at such and such conference. And then the 3 things that you want them to know about you, what sets you apart, whether it's research you're doing, whether it's just in general an interest that you have, typically associated with their company and their general industry, and why you would be interested in the organization or that person or that opportunity. And then you could also ask about questions about what did you wish that you had learned in college, or what would have aided your work, or how did you get to where you are today? Those type of questions are things you could also ask. Most interesting projects they've worked on, most successful projects or research that they've worked on, most exciting, most upcoming, or either most exciting project or the upcoming project that they're looking forward to. All right, so go back to your handout, and if you can add, if you did fill out the goals part and the connections part, add any pieces from your elevator pitch that you just wrote down, or pieces of your elevator pitch that you just wrote down that you would include in that specific talk to that specific person. So if it's the professor that you wanted to learn more about the industry, you want to say something about your interest or your knowledge in that industry. So take a couple of minutes to try to add the specific talking points that you want to make sure that you mention to those specific connections that relate to those goals. All right, now take a couple minutes, and with partner or 3, I think now we have enough for 2, but you could also do 3 people. Try your elevator pitch. I know it feels a little bit weird, but it's actually very helpful to articulate and talk out loud about, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like full-on sentences. It can just be your specific talking points, but take a couple of minutes and talk to the person, 1 or 2 people next to you, your elevator pitch.